So the narrative has been that people who are overweight are lazy, they don't exercise enough, they have no impulse control. But that is actually not true. According to Dr. Robert Lustig, who is a pediatric endocrinologist in San Francisco and who is associated with UCSF, according to him, what happens with a diet, with a constant diet of processed foods where people are ingesting huge quantities of salt, sugar, and fat, and a bunch of chemicals, it actually changes the biochemistry of their bodies. And then the bodies don't process things the way they're supposed to. And what happens is the goal of the food companies is to get people to eat more than they would normally eat, to overeat. For example, if you buy a bag of potato chips and you say to yourself, I'm going to eat just a dozen of these potato chips, and you start eating them, and they're crunchy, they're sweet, they're salty, they're spicy, and you just keep eating them, right? You can't just put them down and eat that dozen you promised yourself. Then all of a sudden half the bag is gone and you think, oh my gosh, how many calories was that? And that's what happens with a lot of these processed foods. There's not a whole lot of nutrients in a lot of these foods. So the body is asking for more. When you might eat a huge meal, but you're still hungry afterwards. That's not normal. Around the 1970s, the US government and a lot of the medical associations started noticing that people were getting bigger. They were gaining a lot of weight. And they went to these food companies, these companies that make processed foods, and they said, look, we need your help in managing this crisis because people's weight is increasing and their health is deteriorating, and we need for you to help out with this. So these companies got together, and I call them the four horses of the apocalypse: salt, sugar, fat, and advertising. They all got together. And the first thing they worried about was their image and how they were perceived by the public. So when they saddled up those horses, the one that was saddled up first, of course, was the advertising horse. So they said, oh, we're going to help out and help manage this crisis. And through many meetings and many discussions, the sugar lobby was successful in pointing the finger at the fat lobby. And so some of you may remember this, that all of a sudden in the late 70s and 80s, we suddenly had an explosion of low-fat foods. And it gave people a false sense of security because people thought, oh, well, this is low fat, this is low calories, and I can eat as much of this as I want. And that is not true. And when you monkey with that magic formula, the salt, sugar, fat formula, you reduce one of those ingredients, guess what? You increase the other two. So a lot of those meals ended up with more sugar and more salt.